Captain Sarah Chin pressed her palm against the cold metal of the viewport, watching Earth grow larger as the Defiance cut through the darkness of space. 30 years. 30 long years since she'd seen the blue marble that had once been humanity's only home. Now it looked different, darker somehow, with strange geometric patterns of light where the great cities used to shine. "Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from the communications station. "We're receiving the final check-ins from all fleet groups. 1,237 ships ready for Operation Homecoming." Sarah turned from the window, her weathered face set in grim determination. At 55, she'd spent more than half her life in space, but she could still remember the smell of New York streets, the sound of traffic in downtown Los Angeles, the feeling of rain on her face in London. The Zephyrians had taken all of that, but they'd given humanity something else in return, a reason to reach for the stars. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Begin final approach. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth today. We're fighting for every human who died in the tunnels, every child who never saw sunlight, every dream they tried to crush." The bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as her crew prepared for battle. These weren't the same soft humans who'd surrendered their world 3 decades ago. These were the children of refugees, born in the cold vacuum of space, raised on mining stations and research outposts scattered across the solar system. They'd grown up hearing stories of Earth, but they'd never called it home. Their home was the void between worlds, and they'd learned to make it their weapon. "Ma'am," Ensign Park spoke up from the sensor station, his voice tight with excitement. "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. The Zephyrian defense grid is powering up." Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Let them power up everything they've got. They're about to learn the difference between occupying a world and defending it. Through the viewport, she could see the other ships in her fleet, converted mining vessels bristling with improvised weapons, research stations that had been turned into mobile fortresses, colony ships that now carried fighters instead of families. Each one told a story of human ingenuity and stubborn refusal to give up. The Zephyrians had superior technology, but humans had something better, the desperate fury of a species with nothing left to lose. "Captain Chen," the voice crackled over the general communication channel. It was Admiral Martinez aboard the Vengeance, the flagship of the Second Fleet. "All groups report ready. The outer system defense platforms are in position. If any Zephyrian ship tries to run, they won't make it past Mars." Sarah nodded, even though Martinez couldn't see her. The plan was ambitious beyond belief, a coordinated strike involving every human settlement from the asteroid belt to the outer planets. While her first fleet attacked Earth directly, the other fleets would simultaneously hit Zephyrian outposts throughout the solar system. It was all or nothing, and if they failed, humanity would be extinct within a generation. "Sensors are picking up movement in Earth's orbit," Rodriguez reported. "Looks like a full Zephyrian battle fleet. 73 ships, including at least 12 of their heavy cruisers." "Only 73? Sarah laughed. "They really don't understand what they're dealing with, do they?" The truth was, the Zephyrians had grown complacent. For 30 years, they'd ruled Earth with minimal resistance. The human survivors had retreated underground, living like rats in subway tunnels and abandoned basements. The aliens had no idea that those same survivors had been building, planning, and preparing. Every piece of salvaged technology, every captured weapon, every hard-learned lesson had been shared across the growing network of human settlements spreading through the solar system. "Ma'am, we're getting a transmission from Earth's surface," the communications officer announced. It's from the underground resistance." Sarah's heart skipped. The resistance had been silent for months, leading the Zephyrians to believe they'd finally been crushed. But Sarah knew better. Commander Jackson was down there somewhere, and he was too stubborn to die quietly. "Put it through," she ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was scratchy and filled with static, but unmistakably human. "Ghost leader to incoming fleet. The basement is ready for visitors." "Repeat, the basement is ready for visitors." Sarah grinned. Ghost leader was Jackson's call sign, and basement was code for the massive network of tunnels and bunkers the Resistance had been building beneath Earth's major cities. For 30 years, while the Zephyrians celebrated their conquest above ground, humans had been digging, fortifying, and preparing for this moment. "All ships, this is Captain Chen," she broadcast to the fleet. "The party starts in 30 minutes. Remember your assignments, stick to the plan, and let's show these crystal-faced bastards what happens when you mess with Earth." The fleet began to spread out, taking positions around the planet. Sarah's group would hit the primary defense installations over North America, while other battle groups targeted Europe, Asia, and the Southern Hemisphere. The converted mining ships, with their heavy drilling equipment turned into weapons, would punch through the energy shields protecting the major cities. The research stations, packed with scientists who'd spent decades studying captured Zephyrian technology, would deploy electronic warfare systems to disrupt the aliens' communications. And the colony ships, carrying thousands of fighters and small, fast attack craft, would swarm the enemy like angry bees. "Captain, we're being hailed by the Zephyrian fleet," Rodriguez reported. "Put it on screen." The main display flickered to life, showing the angular features of a Zephyrian commander. The alien's crystalline skin caught the light from his ship's bridge, giving him an almost ethereal appearance. When he spoke, his voice was cold and mechanical, filtered through a translation device. "Human vessels, you will surrender immediately and return to your designated containment areas. This system is under the protection of the Zephyrian Empire. Your continued existence depends on your compliance." Sarah stepped forward, making sure the alien could see her clearly. "Protection? Is that what you call it? Tell me, Commander, do you know what humans call a species that comes to our world uninvited, kills our people, and enslaves the survivors?" The Zephyrian's large, dark eyes showed no emotion. "Your species classifications are irrelevant. You will comply or be eliminated." "We call them extinct," Sarah said, and cut the transmission. The alien fleet was moving now, breaking orbit and heading toward the human ships. Sarah had to admit, they were impressive vessels, sleek, crystalline constructs that seemed to bend light around them. Their weapons could slice through a ship's hull like butter, and their shields could deflect almost any conventional attack. "Almost. All ships, begin the dance," Sarah ordered. The human fleet scattered like leaves in the wind, each ship following predetermined patterns that looked chaotic but were actually carefully choreographed. The Zephyrians had superior individual ships, but they fought like a traditional navy in formation, with coordinated tactics. Humans had learned to fight like pirates, each ship captain making split-second decisions, improvising and adapting on the fly. The first exchange of fire lit up the space around Earth like a deadly fireworks display. Zephyrian energy beams lanced out, destroying 2 human ships in the first salvo. But before the aliens could celebrate, the humans struck back with weapons the Zephyrians had never seen before. The mining ship Prospector fired its main drilling laser, not at a Zephyrian ship's hull, but at the space directly in front of it. The beam struck a cloud of metallic dust that had been deployed seconds earlier, creating a brilliant flash that overwhelmed the alien ship's sensors. Blinded, the Zephyrian vessel couldn't dodge the torpedo that followed, and it exploded in a shower of crystal fragments. "First blood to the Prospector," someone shouted over the comm channel. But the Zephyrians adapted quickly. Their ships began spreading out, trying to prevent the humans from using their swarm tactics. Energy beams swept through space, and more human ships died: the converted freighter Liberty, the research vessel Discovery, the mining platform New Frontier. Each loss was a blow to Sarah's heart, but she couldn't let emotion cloud her judgment. This was war, and people died in wars. "Captain, the Zephyrian heavy cruisers are moving to attack position," Park reported. "They're targeting the colony ships." Sarah's blood went cold. The colony ships were the largest, slowest targets in the fleet, and they were packed with fighters and their pilots. If the Zephyrians destroyed them, the second phase of the attack would be impossible. "All heavy units, protect the colony ships," she ordered. "Mining vessels, form up on the Defiance. We're going to show these aliens what a real drill looks like." The Defiance led a group of converted mining ships in a direct charge at the Zephyrian heavy cruisers. It was a desperate gambit. The mining ships were tough, but they weren't built for ship-to-ship combat. However, Sarah was counting on the one advantage humans had always possessed, the willingness to take insane risks. The Zephyrian cruisers opened fire as the human ships approached, their energy beams tearing through space. The mining ship Iron Will took a direct hit and vanished in a ball of fire. The Perseverance lost its main engine and began tumbling helplessly. But the survivors kept coming, their drilling equipment spinning up to maximum power. "This is for Chicago," Captain Murphy of the Digger shouted as his ship rammed into the nearest Zephyrian cruiser, its massive drill boring through the alien's crystalline hull. The cruiser tried to shake off the mining ship, but Murphy's crew had locked their drill in place. The two ships spun together in a deadly dance, the drill punching deeper and deeper into the alien vessel's core. When the cruiser's power plant finally breached, both ships were consumed in the explosion. Sarah watched her friend die and felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Murphy had been with her since the early days, when they were just refugees trying to survive in the asteroid belt. He'd named his daughter after her, and now that little girl would grow up without a father. "All units, this is Chen," she said into her comm unit, her voice deadly calm. "That was for Chicago. Now let's take the rest of it back." The battle was turning into a slugging match, with both sides taking heavy losses. But Sarah could see that the Zephyrians were starting to falter. They'd expected to face a desperate, poorly equipped resistance. Instead, they were fighting a fleet that had been specifically designed to counter their tactics and technology. "Captain, we're receiving a signal from the surface," Rodriguez announced. "It's the Resistance. They're ready to begin Phase 2. Sarah nodded. Phase 2 was the most dangerous part of the plan, and it depended on perfect timing. While the space battle raged overhead, the underground resistance had been moving into position beneath the major cities. When the signal was given, they would strike at the same moment that the human fighters launched their attack from orbit. "Colony ships, launch all fighters," Sarah ordered. "Target the city shields. Remember, we need to get through them before the resistance makes their move." Thousands of small craft poured out of the colony ships like a swarm of metal wasps. These weren't the sophisticated fighters of the old Earth navies, they were improvised attack craft built in asteroid mining facilities and lunar workshops. Some were barely more than engines strapped to a pilot's chair, with just enough armor to survive atmospheric entry. But they were fast, numerous, and piloted by men and women who had been dreaming of this moment their entire lives. The fighters dove toward Earth's atmosphere, dodging Zephyrian interceptors and surface-to-air fire. Many were destroyed before they could reach their targets, but enough survived to begin their attack on the energy shields protecting the major cities. They used a tactic that would have been impossible with conventional weapons. Instead of trying to overload the shields with brute force, they used modified mining charges to create resonance patterns that disrupted the shield generators. "Shield over New York is fluctuating," Park reported excitedly. "London shield is down. Paris shield is." His words were cut off as a Zephyrian energy beam struck the Defiance's bridge. The lights went out, and Sarah found herself floating in zero gravity as the ship's artificial gravity failed. Emergency lighting flickered on, revealing a scene of chaos and destruction. "Damage report," Sarah called out, pulling herself to her command chair. "Main engines are down, weapons are offline, and we've lost primary life support," Rodriguez replied, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. "Hull breach on Deck 7. Emergency teams are responding." Sarah looked around the ruined bridge. Half her crew was dead or wounded, and her ship was crippled. But through the cracked viewport, she could see something that made her heart soar. The shields over Earth's cities were failing, one by one, as the human fighters pressed their attack. "Signal the resistance," she ordered. "Tell them it's time to come out of the basement." All across Earth's surface, hidden doors opened in subway tunnels, abandoned buildings, and forgotten bunkers. The human resistance had been living underground for 30 years, but they hadn't been idle. They'd been digging, building, and preparing for this moment. Now they emerged like a tide of vengeance, carrying weapons that had been cached for decades and new ones built in secret workshops. The Zephyrians had grown used to ruling from their towering crystal spires, secure behind their energy shields and protected by their technological superiority. They weren't prepared for thousands of humans suddenly appearing in their own streets, attacking with everything from stolen energy weapons to improvised explosives made from household chemicals. Sarah watched from orbit as the cities of Earth erupted in rebellion. Fires bloomed across the surface as human fighters destroyed Zephyrian installations. The alien defenders were skilled and well-equipped, but they were outnumbered and caught completely off guard. "Captain, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the surface," Rodriguez reported, his voice filled with excitement. "The Resistance has taken the command center in New York. London is reporting the alien governor's palace has fallen. In Tokyo, they've captured the main communication hub. But the Zephyrians weren't finished. The alien fleet in orbit was regrouping, and Sarah could see reinforcements arriving from the outer system. More importantly, she could see the massive orbital platforms the aliens had built around Earth beginning to power up their main weapons. If those fired on the planet's surface, they would kill millions of humans along with the Resistance fighters. "All ships, new priority target," Sarah announced to the surviving fleet. "Those orbital platforms cannot be allowed to fire on Earth. Whatever it takes, we stop them." The human fleet was in bad shape. More than half their ships had been destroyed or crippled, and the survivors were running low on ammunition and fuel. But they were so close to victory that Sarah could taste it. The Zephyrians were losing control of the planet, and if the human fleet could neutralize the orbital weapons, the Resistance would be able to finish the job. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup in the platforms," Park warned. "They're preparing to fire on the surface. Multiple targets, looks like they're going for maximum civilian casualties." Sarah felt a cold rage settle over her. The Zephyrians would rather murder millions of innocent people than lose their grip on Earth. Well, she had news for them. "All remaining ships, this is Captain Chen," she'd broadcast on all frequencies. "We're going to ram those platforms. Anyone who wants to eject first, do it now. The rest of you, it's been an honor." The comm channels filled with responses from the surviving ship captains. No one was ejecting. They'd come too far and lost too much to back down now. The crippled human fleet charged toward the orbital platforms, their engines pushed far beyond safe limits. The Zephyrians threw everything they had at the approaching ships, but the humans kept coming. The research vessel Einstein was blown apart just short of its target, but its wreckage continued forward and damaged the platform's main gun. The mining ship Last Hope lost its bridge to enemy fire, but the engine room crew kept the ship on course until it punched through the platform's hull. Sarah's own ship, the Defiance, was held together by prayers and emergency patches, but it was still flying. She aimed it at the largest platform, the one that was already charging its weapons to fire on New York. "This is for Earth," she whispered, and pushed the engine controls to maximum. The Defiance slammed into the orbital platform with the force of a small asteroid. The impact tore both vessels apart, but not before the platform's weapon systems overloaded and exploded. The chain reaction spread to the other platforms, and within minutes, the entire orbital defense network was nothing but drifting debris. Sarah found herself floating in the wreckage of her ship's bridge, her vision blurry from blood loss and smoke inhalation. Through the twisted metal and broken glass, she could see Earth turning slowly below. The planet's surface was scarred with the fires of battle, but those fires were burning in the shapes of human victory. The Resistance had won. The cities were free. Her communicator crackled to life with a familiar voice. "Fleet Command, this is Ghost Leader. Earth is secure. Repeat, Earth is secure. The crystal heads are either dead or running. Welcome home, Captain." Sarah smiled as consciousness faded. They'd done it. They'd actually done it. The Zephyrians had taken their cities, but humans had taken their stars. And now, finally, they were taking their cities back. 6 months later, Sarah stood in the ruins of what had once been a Zephyrian command center in downtown Manhattan. The alien crystal spires had been torn down, and human construction crews were already building new structures in their place. But these wouldn't be like the old skyscrapers. They would incorporate technology learned from 30 years of living in space, with built-in life support systems and defensive measures. Earth would never be defenseless again. The last of the Zephyrian ships left the system this morning, Admiral Martinez reported, joining her at the observation deck. Our long-range sensors show them heading toward the galactic core. I don't think they'll be back. Sarah nodded, watching the construction crews work. Many of them were former resistance fighters, people who had spent decades hiding underground but were now helping to rebuild their world. Others were refugees from the space colonies, finally coming home to a planet they'd never seen but had always dreamed of. The Senate has approved the new Space Defense Initiative, Martinez continued. We'll have permanent bases on every major body in the solar system within 10 years. And the new ships, well, let's just say they'll make our improvised fleet look like toys. Good, Sarah said. But remember, Admiral, it wasn't our technology that won this war. It was our refusal to give up. The Zephyrians had better ships, better weapons, better everything. But they made one crucial mistake. What's that? Sarah smiled, watching a group of children playing in a park that had been built where a Zephyrian fortress once stood. They thought taking our cities meant they'd broken our spirit. They never understood that home isn't a place, it's a people. And you can't conquer people who refuse to be conquered. In the distance, she could see the launch trails of ships heading out to the stars. Some carried colonists to new worlds, others carried explorers seeking new frontiers. Humanity had learned to live among the stars, and now nothing could ever force them back into the shadows. The Zephyrians had taken their cities, but humans had taken their stars. And they were never giving them back. Dr. Elena Vasquez adjusted her environmental suit as she stepped off the transport at the newly constructed Titan Research Station. Through the facility's massive transparent aluminum windows, she could see the amber glow of Saturn's rings stretching across the star-filled sky. It was beautiful, but Elena's mind was focused on the data streams flowing across her tablet, information that could change everything humanity thought they knew about their recent victory. Dr. Vasquez, welcome to Titan Base, Commander Hayes greeted her at the airlock. I have to say, your message from Earth was concerning. Are you certain about these findings? Elena nodded grimly. I wish I wasn't. The archaeological data from the Zephyrian ruins is conclusive. We need to talk, and we need to talk privately. 20 minutes later, they sat in Hayes's office, a cup of synthetic coffee growing cold between them as Elena spread holographic displays across the table. The images showed artifacts recovered from destroyed Zephyrian installations, crystalline data storage devices, architectural fragments, and most importantly, star charts that dated back thousands of years. This is what we found beneath the ruins of their primary command center in Geneva, Elena began, activating a three-dimensional star map. These aren't conquest records, Commander. They're refugee logs. Hayes leaned forward, studying the swirling patterns of light. Refugee logs? What are you saying? The Zephyrians weren't invaders, Elena said quietly. They were running from something. Something that destroyed their homeworld and drove them across the galaxy. Earth wasn't their first stop, it was their last hope. The implications hit Hayes like a physical blow. But the invasion, the occupation, was desperation masquerading as conquest. Look at this. Elena highlighted a section of the star map showing a vast dark region where stars simply ended. Their homeworld was in this sector. Was, past tense. According to these records, something swept through this entire region of space, consuming everything in its path. Entire star systems, gone. The Zephyrians called it the hunger. Hayes stood up, pacing to the window. Outside, the rings of Saturn continued their eternal dance, beautiful and peaceful. How many of them were there? Total population, I mean. Based on the data, maybe 50 million. And they'd been traveling for over 3 centuries before they reached our system. Their fleet was composed of the last survivors of a civilization that once spanned dozens of worlds. And we slaughtered them, Hayes said, his voice hollow. Elena pulled up another display, casualty reports from the Liberation War. We killed approximately 38 million Zephyrians. The survivors who fled the system numbered less than 12 million. We may have just committed genocide against a refugee population. For several minutes, the only sound in the office was the hum of the life support systems. Finally, Hayes turned back to Elena. "Does Earth know about this?" "The Senate Intelligence Committee has been briefed. President Chen, Captain Chen's daughter, is reviewing the full report." "But Elena, there's more. The Zephyrian records contain detailed information about the hunger. How it moves, how it consumes, how it spreads. And according to their astronomical calculations, it's coming here," Hayes finished. Elena nodded. "Their long-range sensors detected the leading edge of the phenomenon approximately 80 years ago. It moves slower than their ships could travel, but it's inexorable. Based on their data, it will reach our solar system in approximately 120 years. Hayes sank back into his chair. "What exactly is this hunger?" "We're not entirely sure. The Zephyrian scientific records describe it as a form of dark matter that doesn't just interact with normal matter, it converts it. Stars, planets, space itself, everything gets transformed into more of this stuff. The affected regions become completely uninhabitable, devoid of the physical laws that allow life to exist. And the Zephyrians knew this when they came to Earth. They were trying to find a way to stop it. Their occupation of Earth wasn't just about conquest, they were studying our planet's unique magnetic field and geological structure. They thought Earth might be capable of generating some kind of barrier effect." Hayes rubbed his temples. "So we've spent the last 10 years celebrating our victory over an alien invasion, when we actually destroyed the only people who might have been able to save us from something far worse." "It gets worse," Elena said quietly. "The Zephyrian research was incomplete when we attacked. But they'd made significant progress. If we'd worked together instead of fighting." She didn't need to finish. They both understood. Humanity had won a war, but they might have lost the future. The joint session of the Solar Senate was unlike any in human history. Representatives from every major settlement in the solar system had gathered at the new capital station orbiting Earth, their faces grim as they listened to President Sarah Chen, daughter of the war hero and now leader of the reformed human government. "The evidence is undeniable," President Chen announced, her voice carrying across the chamber. "The Zephyrians were not our enemies. They were our potential saviors, and we destroyed them out of fear and ignorance." Senator Walsh from the Mars colonies stood up. "Madam President, with respect, this changes nothing. The Zephyrians still occupied our world, enslaved our people." "Did they?" Chen interrupted, pulling up holographic displays. "New evidence suggests that what we interpreted as enslaving our people was actually an attempt to evacuate Earth's population to safety. The underground prisons we found weren't internment camps, they were shelters designed to protect humans from cosmic radiation while the Zephyrians worked to fortify our planet's defenses." A murmur ran through the assembly. Admiral Martinez, now in his 70s but still sharp, stood slowly. "Are you saying that the resistance was wrong? That my wife died fighting for nothing?" Chen's expression softened. "Admiral, your wife died fighting for what she believed was right based on the information available at the time. But yes, we were wrong. The Zephyrians' methods were harsh and their communication was terrible, but their goals aligned with our survival." Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as the government's chief xenoarchaeologist, stepped forward. "We've decoded more of their records. The Zephyrians had a plan to turn Earth into a fortress world, a planet capable of withstanding the hunger's advance. The energy shields over our cities weren't meant to keep us in. They were meant to keep the hunger out." "Then why didn't they just tell us?" demanded Representative Singh from the Europa settlements. "Because they tried," Chen replied. "We found dozens of attempted communication protocols, diplomatic overtures, even cultural exchange programs. But humanity in 2025 was still recovering from climate change, political instability, and technological disruption. When strange crystalline beings arrived with superior technology and began making changes to our world without asking permission, we assumed the worst." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Senator Walsh spoke again, his voice subdued. "What do we do now? The hunger is still coming, and we've killed the only people who knew how to stop it." Chen looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of the representatives. We do what humans have always done when faced with the impossible. We adapt, we learn, and we survive. The Zephyrian data is incomplete, but it's a starting point. We have 105 years to finish what they started. Commander Jake Thompson floated in the observation deck of the massive construction platform orbiting Jupiter, watching as automated systems assembled another section of the barrier network. The scale of the project dwarfed anything humanity had ever attempted, a ring of enormous installations stretching across the outer solar system, each one the size of a small moon and packed with technology that was part human engineering, part Zephyrian science. "Status report," he requested, and his neural interface immediately filled his vision with data streams. "Section 847 is complete and powered up," his AI assistant reported. "That brings us to 63% completion of the Jupiter array. The Saturn array is at 58%, and the Uranus array is at 41%. We're still on schedule for full network activation in 18 months. Jake nodded, but his expression remained troubled. The Great Work, as historians were already calling it, was humanity's desperate attempt to create the planetary defense system the Zephyrians had envisioned. Using their fragmentary records and 50 years of intensive research, human scientists had developed a plan to surround the solar system with a network of exotic matter generators, devices that could theoretically create a barrier of stable spacetime that the hunger couldn't penetrate. Theoretically. The truth was, no one really knew if it would work. The mathematics were sound, but they were based on physics that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. And they were running out of time. "Commander, we're receiving a priority transmission from Deep Space Monitor Station 7, his communications officer announced. They're reporting unusual readings from the direction of the Zephyrian Exodus fleet." Jake's blood went cold. The surviving Zephyrians had fled toward the galactic core 50 years ago, and humanity had tracked them for as long as possible before losing contact. "Put it through." The main display activated, showing the tired face of Dr. Catherine Liu, the chief astronomer at Monitor Station 7. "Commander, we've been tracking anomalous signals from the Zephyrian fleet's last known position. 3 hours ago, those signals stopped completely. All of them." "Equipment malfunction?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. "Negative. We've cross-referenced with the other deep space stations. The Zephyrian fleet has gone dark, and we're detecting the same type of spatial distortions that their records described as precursors to the Hunger's arrival." Jake closed his eyes. The Hunger was ahead of schedule. The Zephyrians had bought humanity time by fleeing in the opposite direction, essentially using themselves as bait to draw the phenomenon away from Earth. But that gambit had failed, and now the cosmic horror was coming back. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Based on the propagation speed of the distortions, the Hunger will reach the edge of our solar system in approximately 18 months. Maybe less. The same amount of time they needed to complete the barrier network. It was going to be close, too close. Send a priority message to Earth," Jake ordered. "Tell them we need to accelerate the construction schedule. Whatever it takes." President Maria Santos stood in the command center of the newly completed Sol Defense Station, humanity's last line of defense against the approaching darkness. Around her, the greatest minds of the human race worked frantically at their stations, making final adjustments to the barrier network. Outside the station's windows, the solar system looked peaceful, but long-range sensors told a different story. "Ma'am, we're getting the final reports from the outer perimeter," Admiral Thompson reported. "The Hunger has consumed the Kuiper Belt. Pluto is gone. The effect is accelerating as it moves inward." Santos nodded grimly. They'd watched the approach for months through their deep space monitors, and it was exactly as horrifying as the Zephyrian records had described. Stars simply vanished, not exploding or collapsing but ceasing to exist entirely, leaving behind regions of space where the laws of physics no longer functioned. And now it was at their doorstep. "Status of the barrier network?" "All installations are online and ready," Dr. Vasquez reported from her station. She was 85 years old now, but her mind was still sharp. "The exotic matter generators are stable, the field equations are locked in, and the quantum resonance chambers are synchronized across the entire network." "And our chances of success?" Vasquez hesitated. Unknown. The theory is sound, but we've never tested anything on this scale. We're essentially trying to create a bubble of stable spacetime around the entire solar system using technology that combines human quantum mechanics with Zephyrian exotic matter manipulation. If it works, the hunger should be unable to penetrate the barrier. If it doesn't... She didn't need to finish. Everyone in the command center knew what would happen if the barrier network failed. Humanity would face the same fate as the Zephyrians' homeworld, complete annihilation. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the Mars defense platform," the communications officer announced. It's from the Zephyrian survivors." The command center fell silent. The last contact with the surviving Zephyrians had been 50 years ago, when their fleet had disappeared into the void. Santos had assumed they were all dead. "Put it through." The main display flickered to life, showing the familiar crystalline features of a Zephyrian. But this one looked different, older somehow, with cracks in his crystal skin and a weariness in his dark eyes that spoke of unimaginable suffering. "Humans of Earth," the alien spoke, his voice translated by the universal communication system humanity had developed. "I am Kethvar, last commander of the Zephyrian remnant fleet. We have observed your preparations and we are impressed." Santos stepped forward. "Commander Kethvar, we thought you were all dead. Where are you transmitting from?" "From the edge of the hunger's influence. We have spent 50 years studying the phenomenon, seeking a way to defeat it. Our ships are failing, our people are dying, but we have learned much. The barrier you are attempting to create, it may work, but you will need to modify the field harmonics." Dr. Vasquez practically leaped from her chair. "What modifications? Please, we need to know." The Zephyrian's image flickered as his transmission was disrupted by the cosmic chaos around him. The resonance frequency must be shifted to account for the hunger's adaptive properties. It learns, it evolves. Your current settings will hold for perhaps hours before it finds a way through. "How do we prevent that?" Santos asked urgently. "You must create a dynamic barrier, one that changes its properties randomly, faster than the hunger can adapt. But this will require constant adjustment, constant monitoring. Your artificial intelligences are not sophisticated enough. You will need living minds, many of them working in constant coordination." The implications hit Santos immediately. A dynamic barrier would require thousands of human operators, working in shifts around the clock, for as long as the hunger remained a threat. It would be a permanent commitment, binding future generations to an endless vigil. "We understand," Santos said. "Can you transmit the modification specifications?" "I am transmitting now," Kethvar replied. "But hear me, humans. This is not a solution, it is only a delay. The hunger will eventually find a way through any barrier. Your only hope is to find a way to destroy it permanently, or to evacuate your people to another galaxy entirely." "What about your people?" Santos asked. "Can we bring you through the barrier?" Kethvar's expression was unreadable, but Santos thought she detected something like gratitude in his alien features. "We are dying, President Santos. The hunger has infected our ships, our bodies, our very souls. We cannot be saved. But perhaps we can finally make amends for the suffering we caused your people." The transmission cut out, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Then Dr. Vasquez spoke up, her voice tight with urgency. "I'm receiving the modification data. This is incredible, it's 50 years of research compressed into a single transmission. We can implement these changes, but we'll need to recalibrate the entire network." "How long?" Santos asked. 6 hours, minimum. Maybe 8. Santos looked at the tactical display showing the hunger's approach. They had perhaps 10 hours before it reached the inner solar system. It was going to be close again. "Do it," she ordered. "And prepare the human interface protocols. We're going to need volunteers." The barrier network came online just as the hunger reached Neptune's orbit. In the Sol Defense Station's command center, thousands of human operators sat at neural interface stations, their minds linked directly to the exotic matter generators scattered throughout the solar system. President Santos watched the tactical display as the cosmic phenomenon encountered humanity's last defense. For a moment, nothing happened. The dark wave of non-existence crashed against the barrier and simply stopped. The exotic matter field held, creating a bubble of stable spacetime around the solar system while the hunger flowed around it like water around a stone. A cheer went up from the control center, but Santos held up her hand for silence. Hold your celebration. According to the Zephyrian data, this is when it gets dangerous. She was right. Within minutes, the hunger began to probe the barrier, testing its properties and looking for weaknesses. The neural-linked operators could feel it, a cold, alien intelligence pressing against their defenses, trying to understand how to break through. Initiating dynamic field rotation, Dr. Vasquez announced. All operators, prepare for continuous modulation. The real work began. For the next 18 hours, humanity's defenders waged a battle unlike any in history. It wasn't fought with weapons or ships, but with mathematics and willpower. The hunger would adapt to one configuration of the barrier, and the human operators would shift to another. It would probe for quantum inconsistencies, and they would adjust the field harmonics. It would attempt to overload the generators, and they would redistribute the power load. Many of the operators collapsed from exhaustion or neural strain. Others had to be replaced when the constant mental contact with the alien phenomenon began to affect their sanity. But humanity held the line. On the second day, something unexpected happened. The hunger began to withdraw. It's moving away from the barrier, one of the sensor operators reported, disbelief in his voice. The phenomenon is retreating toward the galactic rim. Santos frowned. That doesn't match the Zephyrian data. According to their records, the hunger is relentless. It doesn't give up. Dr. Vasquez was studying the readings at her station. Unless, oh my God. I think I know what's happening. The hunger isn't retreating because it's defeated. It's retreating because it's learning. Learning what? How to break through the barrier. It's going to other star systems, consuming other civilizations, and integrating their knowledge into itself. When it comes back, it will know how to defeat our defenses. The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. They'd won the battle, but the war was far from over. The memorial gardens on Luna were quiet, illuminated by the soft glow of Earth hanging in the black sky above. President Santos walked slowly among the crystalline monuments, each one bearing the name of a human who had died defending the barrier network. But at the center of the garden stood a different kind of memorial, a structure of living crystal that pulsed with soft, blue light. The Zephyrian Memorial, Dr. Vasquez said, joining Santos at the monument. It's beautiful, isn't it? The crystal actually contains genetic information from every member of their species. In a way, they're still alive. Santos nodded. Any word from the deep space monitoring stations? The hunger is still out there, consuming star systems and growing stronger. Our long-range projections suggest it will return in approximately 40 years, and when it does, our current defenses won't be sufficient. Which is why we're implementing the new compact. The new compact was humanity's response to the long-term threat of the hunger. Recognizing that the barrier was only a temporary solution, the human government had authorized the most ambitious project in the species' history, the construction of generation ships capable of carrying humanity to other galaxies, while simultaneously developing new technologies to fight the hunger directly. The first wave of colony ships launches next month, Vasquez reported. 50 vessels, each carrying 1 million people in cryosleep, bound for the Andromeda Galaxy. If we can't defeat the hunger, at least we can ensure humanity's survival. And the second project? Vasquez's expression grew serious. The weapon project is proceeding on schedule. We're using a combination of human innovation and Zephyrian science to develop something the universe has never seen before, a device capable of destabilizing the dark matter structures that make up the hunger. If our calculations are correct, we can actually reverse the process and restore the consumed regions of space to normal matter. Santos looked up at the Earth hanging in the lunar sky. 50 years ago, we thought we were fighting for our freedom. Now we're fighting for the survival of existence itself. The Zephyrians were right about one thing, Vasquez said quietly. The universe is a dangerous place. But they were wrong about something else. They thought they had to bear the burden alone. Humans don't make that mistake. As if to emphasize her point, a communication alert chimed on Santos's wrist device. She activated it, and a holographic display showed representatives from across the solar system, the mining colonies of the asteroid belt, the research stations of the outer planets, the underwater cities of Europa, and the cloud cities of Venus. The Solar Senate has voted, the speaker announced. Resolution 2157 has passed unanimously. The Hunger Defense Initiative is approved for full implementation. Every human settlement in the solar system has committed resources to the project. Santos smiled. The Zephyrians had been a dying civilization when they arrived at Earth, desperate and alone. But humanity was different. They had learned from the Zephyrians' mistakes, both in first contact and in facing cosmic threats. They wouldn't face the Hunger as refugees or conquerors, but as guardians of life itself. Dr. Vasquez, Santos said, what do you think our chances are? The elderly scientist looked up at the stars, where the lights of human ships could be seen traveling to distant worlds. I think the Hunger is about to learn something new. It's consumed thousands of civilizations, absorbed their knowledge and their strength. But it's never encountered a species that refuses to die, refuses to surrender, and refuses to let others face the darkness alone. She paused, watching as a new star appeared in the sky, the drive flare of another human ship heading out to the galaxy. The Zephyrians took our cities, and we took their stars. But now we're going to take something else, the future itself. The Hunger thinks it's inevitable, that entropy always wins. It's about to discover that it's never faced a species that builds civilizations in the void and calls it home. In the distance, the Earth turned in its orbit, blue and green and alive, protected by its barrier of exotic matter and the vigilance of its children. And beyond that, spreading out across the solar system and reaching toward other galaxies, humanity continued its greatest work, not just surviving, but thriving in the face of the impossible. The universe was vast and dangerous, filled with forces that could snuff out entire civilizations. But it was also filled with something else, the stubborn, impossible, beautiful refusal of life to surrender to the dark. The Hunger was coming back, stronger than before. Humanity would be ready.